Good evening and welcome to tonight's neighborhood meeting. My name is Tyler Butler and I'm a planner with the city's Development Services Department. The focus of tonight's meeting will be on an application for a communications tower located at 128 Penetang Street. The application is itself proposed by and operated by Rogers Communications. And please be aware we are recording this meeting for the public record, and all information provided is being collected and will be used for the purposes of garnering your input to respond to your inquiries and will be considered public information. Should you have questions regarding this collection, feel free to contact the Development Services Department. I would like to let everyone know that there are staff also behind the scenes tonight managing the technology, and they have the ability to interrupt the meeting at any time and will allow the applicant and members of the public the opportunity to speak. So please bear with us if we do have any issues. We'll do our best to kind of get you guys back into the meeting or get your mics working in case we've got some issues there. So tonight's meeting is not a statutory requirement under the Planning Act, as these applications do not require municipal permits. The city's telecommunications protocol, however, requires that a consultation with the public on proposed towers within the city take place. All decisions related to communications towers applications will be made by Industry Canada. The intent of tonight's meeting is more so to provide members of the public with an opportunity to become familiar with the development and to ask questions of the applicant to provide feedback. So what can you expect tonight? Well, there will be a presentation from the applicant's representative describing the proposal and Industry Canada's review process. You'll also get a brief overview of the city's process and timelines, and then you'll also have an opportunity to ask questions of either the applicant or city staff and provide comments or identify any concerns that you have with the application. What not to expect tonight? Well, you're not going to see a city recommendation on the application or a debate on the merits of the proposal between the city and the applicant. Once we do move on to our question and answer period, if you wish to ask a question or provide a comment, you will be required to use the meeting controls to raise your virtual hand. And you can find those raise your hand buttons and other meeting controls at the bottom of your screen. For those of us who are joining us by phone, I'm not sure if there are any, but you can use 9 to raise your virtual hand. And when you're called on to speak, you can press 6 to unmute yourself. When we do call on you to speak, if you just want to state your name and then just provide your question or comment. So as we do work through those questions or comments later in the meeting, I do respectfully request that members of the public please avoid repeating the same questions and comments over. Once a specific matter has been identified, it will be documented, and the applicant will provide a response either verbally this evening or provide a response later in the process in a written format. This approach will allow us to have a more productive meeting and conclude the meeting as scheduled tonight. So those that have registered by the meeting by providing a mailing or email address will be added to the mailing list to receive further information about the application. So before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to quickly highlight the next steps in this process. So this application specifically was circulated for review and comment. The review process includes collecting comments from the city's technical groups and external agencies, as well as members of the public. Following this meeting, staff will continue the technical review process and may make any necessary revisions to the proposal. And once the review process has concluded, we issue what's called a letter of concurrence to the applicant. And that is basically to say that the applicant has done the consultation process required for the tower. And then again, any comments received at this meeting will be identified and addressed as part of the staff's comments on that letter of concurrence to the applicant and Industry Canada. So as noted before, we will now move on to the applicant's presentation. The applications will be presented first, followed by a question and answer period. So tonight we are focusing on that telecommunications tower proposed at 128 Penetang Street. And we have from Fours Brothers Limited, Rogers is in the care of, and we have Sean Ogilvie tonight to share his presentation and take some questions from the public. So Sean, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn off my video and mute myself. But if you'd like to turn on your camera, microphone, and then share your screen so that all of our residents in attendance tonight can see your presentation, that would be perfect.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. All right. Got that on here. Let me just get this opened. Okay. Hopefully everyone, oops.
Yeah, I think it's not showing full screen there yet, Sean.
Sorry, give me 1 second here.
No worries. I know it's a struggle with multiple screens.
Well, I'm not sure how we got this to work earlier, so I'll just go single screen. Okay, how's that? Are we back to full screen?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Tyler, for that introduction and background on the process and what's happening tonight. As he mentioned, this is for a new Rogers mobile base station tower site at 128 Penetang Street. Rogers site code for this is C7415. And let's get into it here. Probably don't need to go over this too much since Tyler gave a bit of background, but just for the sake of what we're going to do in the presentation here, just a bit of an introduction to the project, the coverage requirements for this tower, or sort of why we're doing it, a few details on the location and the site layout, some information on the process and the regulations, any feedback we've had so far, and then we'll get into some questions and comments. So with that, a little introduction on the two pieces of this puzzle. One is Rogers Communication, who probably don't need any real introduction here, but they are one of Canada's largest wireless service providers. They offer their services under the Rogers, Fido, and Chatter brands. As well, I believe there are a couple internet and broadband brands that they use. It's one of the most extensive networks across Canada, and they employ about 25,000 people in Canada. Forbes, you may be less familiar with. We are a nationwide infrastructure and construction company. So we build power lines, we build these cell towers, electric vehicle charging stations, and a few other types of developments. In this specific case, we're agent for Rogers for the real estate acquisition and municipal approval processes. So a little bit why we're here. The short answer is that Canadians rely and need these wireless services to remain connected. So this is no longer a matter of, the convenience of having a mobile device to check your email now and then, or look at your Instagram. These are, sending emails, making calls, all sorts of business applications, online courses, medical resources, all this stuff. I'm sure I don't need to tell you all about, but if you've ever lost your phone or device or left it in a cab or something like that, you quickly realize how much you do rely on it. And the fact remains that Canadians expect these services to work everywhere they live, work, and play. So that's one of the reasons we're here. Now, the fact that we rely on them, coupled with the fact that demand for these services continues to grow year over year, is what results in the need for additional infrastructure. So you may realize as a developed nation that Canada has a large number of wireless subscriptions, but you may not realize how many are added every year. And in the last 5 years, we've added about 6 million wireless customers. In Canada, more Canadians have mobile phones than landlines, but particularly of interest here is that over a third rely exclusively on wireless services. So they're cutting the cord to, landline phones and other things of that nature. Another aspect of why infrastructure is required has to do with all the data consumption. One way to think about this is that most of us are walking around with a miniature computer inside our pockets that chew up not only data, to browse the internet, check your email, stream video. You could even be participating in this meeting tonight from your phone if you had a strong enough connection. And these types of connections require larger data plans. They use more capacity of the network. And so infilling in the wireless network is required. So what that looks like and what we're looking at here is Rogers' existing coverage for this area of Barrie. This is a map of this sort of St. Vincent and Penetang Street area. The highlighted circle in yellow has nothing to do with the coverage, but that's just highlighting the area we're looking at here. The black dots, it doesn't matter if you can read the labels, but the sort of black circles that have labels, those are all existing Rogers sites, either mounted on rooftops, as the case, the closest one here is Colliery Place. That's a rooftop mounted antenna system, and the others are, I believe, tower sites. Those are existing Rogers towers, and you'll notice surrounding them is the purple color, which represents what Rogers would refer to as benchmarking covering, or sort of the optimal level of coverage. What that provides is reliable signal and data transfer speeds, sort of no matter where you are. So indoors, outdoors, in a car, in your basement, it should be quite reliable when you have that purple benchmarking coverage. Below that, you have the blue, which is considered in-building, which should still be pretty good. Then you get to in-building light. It might get more variable. Green is in-car, and you get further and further from benchmarking. You get on-street coverage and fringe coverage. So in this particular case, Rogers is looking to fill in around the St. Vincent and Penetang Street area and sort of the surrounding area of that, where you get into the light in-building and on-street coverage. So what that would look like with this site in place, you can see in the center, sort of that circle, is the proposed location for this site. It would provide a good level of benchmarking coverage to the immediate surrounding area. As well, it would eliminate most of the on-street coverage that was a little bit more to the northeast. And then the other thing that this does, two other things, I suppose, is it provides a seamless connection to the existing sites in the network. So to the south, to the east, and to the west, and you can't see it on this map, but to the northeast, there's another site. All of this would provide sort of a seamless connection. So as you go from travel through one area of Barrie to the next, if you were on the phone or you were doing something with your mobile device, you wouldn't drop the connection, which is obviously very important. The other big part of this that isn't really shown with a map has to do with what I mentioned about the data usage and the capacity. So the smartphones we use today and wireless devices or laptop computers that are running on wireless coverage use about 100 times the capacity of a traditional, say, flip phone that we may have been using not too long ago. And what happens when you have, say, even the same amount of users in an area all start using this new technology, they start using up network capacity. And it's, in effect, the same result as having an area that's not covered. The more capacity you use up, the less people are able to access the network services. And so the result is the same. You have drop calls, interrupted calls, and service. So that is what they're looking to do in this specific area. So the next piece of this puzzle, once Rogers radio frequency analysts and network engineers identify an area for improvement, they prescribe limits to where a new site might be effective. These limits are generally based on the existing network layout, area, land use considerations, all these factors. And then they give us essentially a boundary and says, the further you are from this boundary, the less optimal the site will become, to the point of perhaps not even working at all. In this specific case, the search area was extremely limited. So what you're looking at here on this map is that pin that says SC. That stands for search center. So that was the center of the search area provided to us. And then that red sort of oval shape was the boundaries of the search limits. So in this case, very, very small. Sometimes they can be bigger. Again, it depends what's in the area and how the layout is. But even in this case, to extend the search area, our options are limited. From the mapping, it's all residential, not a lot of places to go, not a lot of tall buildings to go on top of, no other tall infrastructure in the area to take advantage of. And so we're more or less limited to these two properties, which is the commercial block between Queen Street and Penetang Street along St. Vincent Street. And then there's the Bethel Church, which is actually, I believe, zoned R2 for residential, but obviously there is a large church there just south of our location. The other thing to consider before we propose a new site is the network layout, the existing layout. Where are the existing sites already operating in the area? So in this case, just to describe this map a little bit, we have our location marked in the center there, 7415. That yellow circle is not representative of coverage or of the search area. It's just a 1 kilometer circle to provide some scale for how far we're discussing here. And then all these pins surrounding that are the closest existing sites. And you can see both to the south and to the north and to the east are existing Rogers sites. Not captured on this map actually is another Rogers site a little further northwest, but the point being these are the closest ones. And what we're illustrating here is 2 points. One is that this site sort of fits more or less squarely in the middle of a bunch of Rogers sites that are already there. So moving north or moving east or south wouldn't help our cause in this case because it's already covered, and what you'd end up with is some redundant coverage overlap. And the second piece of that puzzle is to show that there's no tall towers that already exist close by that we could put this equipment on top of. So we're a little bit stuck here with the constraints of this neighborhood and this area in general to put up a new tower. So with that, and with all those constraints on mind, the location was proposed at 128 Penetang Street. So this is an aerial view of 128 Penetang Street. It's sort of like an L-shaped property. The tower is proposed, I guess, in the northeast corner of that L shape, just outside the existing parking area and to the rear of the existing buildings that face St. Vincent Street. Excuse me. This site is set back 27 meters from Penetang Street and about 30 meters from St. Vincent Street and 40 meters from Queen Street. There's existing access into the property, so there's no new access construction. Power will come from within the property. There's a transformer on the property, and that power will be run underground to the compound site. Again, this is a more close-up view at some of the details of what's been proposed here. So this is an excerpt from the site plan showing the compound location just east of the existing parking area and just west of the existing buildings that face St. Vincent Street. It would be a 5 meter by 9 meter approximately compound area with a walk-in equipment cabinet and the tower base inside. The tower itself is a 30 meter tall, what they describe as a slimline monopole. So what this means is a monopole is just sort of what the name implies, a singular steel tube to hold the antenna equipment. The antenna equipment's mounted to the top. The reason they describe this as a slimline pole is that it's much thinner than a traditional monopole structure of a similar height. So this one, excuse me, at the bottom would be about 40 inches, and as it slims down towards the top a little bit, of about 18 inches, whereas a traditional monopole is about 1 meter in face width. So this is significantly smaller. This slide here, you have a couple pictures, one in the upper left there, just showing the existing conditions of the site. So that's facing west from the intersection of St. Vincent and Penetang. And the larger photo here it shows what the tower might look like once it's actually built. And the way they do this is they take an existing site with the same design, and then they use ground elevation measurements and topographical details to superimpose that into the photo to give you an idea of what this would look like if it was there today. So with that, and going over what's been proposed, we'll get into the process a little bit. As you may or may not know, radio communications falls exclusively under federal jurisdiction, but each municipality has some influence. So in this case, the federal government, they set the law, the Radio Communication Act. The Department of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development, or ISED, they establish a consultation process and are generally the day-to-day administrators of the sort of rules and regulations pertaining to new tower sites. They also set all the general requirements, so things like Transport Canada compliance, NAV Canada compliance, Health Canada compliance, and they are set up to resolve disputes if it gets to that stage. The Land Use Authority, which would be the City of Barrie in this case, they're considered a commenting body to the proponent and the federal government. And generally, they're considered best positioned to provide input at a local level. So as Mr. Butler had said, they are in the process of completing a technical analysis, and if there are any departmental comments, they'll send that to us to address. Overall, what we're doing here is we're following through the City of Barrie's policy for new telecommunications towers, and ultimately we would be looking for a recommendation from them. So what's happened so far? We've made our submission in accordance with the city policy. The city has notified property owners by mail. There was a newspaper notice published as well. Currently, we're hosting this public information meeting, as obviously you are aware, and we're in a public reply period. So hopefully any questions, we can answer them tonight at this meeting. But as Mr. Butler mentioned, if we cannot address it tonight, we will provide follow-up in writing, and then we will be concluding the consultation process with the city, again, looking for a recommendation from them.